Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, Nonstop Talking with your girl here, Vivian Wu. Today we will be discussing the worst TV shows and movies I watched in 2025. I have removed all the Chinese microdramas from this list just because I feel like that will skew this list a little bit. So my obsession with Chinese microdramas had carried over from 2024, and it ended like pretty early on in 2025, and there's like a part of me that wants to like go back and like talk about like during my craze of Chinese microdramas, all of the Chinese microdramas I watched, from like the good, the bad to the crazy. I mean, they were all crazy, but like the extremely crazy. But we'll see if I ever get to that. For now, we're just sticking with everything but the Chinese microdramas for this list. And with that being said, I have narrowed it down to 11 titles. I had a pretty decent, solid watching year. I would say, like, looking back at things I rated low, like, there weren't that many. So yeah, like 2025 was like a good year in terms of like my viewing experience. This will be done in countdown style. So at number 11 is MasterChef, I believe. Yes, season 15. It's like subtitle is Dynamic Duels. I've watched every season of MasterChef, and I also like watch like MasterChef, like juniors, the little kids, and I feel like I have been a long time loyal viewer of MasterChef, and I understand that as a show that has been on air for so long, you sometimes need to inject it with some fresh new concepts. And I see that they really tried that with this like dual concept, but I don't think it worked. And I understand that in a kitchen, teamwork is very important, partnerships are necessary, but like this whole competing in pairs, there obviously will always be kind of more of like the alpha chef and like the sous chef, and then just like the dynamics and the interaction and the cooking and all of that stuff. Like it just like, I don't know, I think it failed. It was not very successful. It was not engaging. I understand needing to do something new to be appealing, but I much more would have rather seen the original concept of like solo contestants. So for like the new year, like latter seasons, however long this show will go on, I hope we can bring that back, and that we will never see this whole like competing in pairs again. Number 10 is Galileo Season 2. This is a Japanese drama. I was really excited to see Galileo hit Netflix USA. I had watched the first season years ago and was like really excited to rewatch it because it was such a beloved show, and I really like the actor, what's his name, Fukuyama Masaharu. And so I rewatched the first season, still loved it, and I was like, okay, I've never watched the second season, but like it shortly became available on Netflix US, and I gave it a watch, and it really disappointed me. So they completely swapped out the main female protagonist for someone who was like younger and then new to the like police force, and I don't understand why at all. And I think if you were going to switch out an original beloved character, you need to make sure that the new character is likable or will grow on the audience, and I think the new character failed to do that. And I was just, I don't know, I think in the end of the day, I miss Utsumi too much, that I just couldn't get into the second season. And what had attracted me to the first season was like the like dynamic between the story is about a physics professor who sometimes consults on like or consults with the Tokyo police force on weird or like abnormal cases. And then at that time in the first season, Itsumi was like this rookie cop that like kind of explains to him and like the case and investigates with him, and they solve like these like abnormal crimes that like aren't abnormal once you like have the physics professor explain it to you. But yeah, I think what was great was their dynamic. They had such a good working dynamic and such great chemistry, and to no longer have that in the second season was just very disappointing. Number 9 is The Hating Game. I read the book The Hating Game years ago, and I thought it was a pretty good book. I was entertained, and I was excited for the live movie adaptation. And because originally someone else was cast as the male protagonist, and when he dropped from the production, I was kind of disappointed because I liked him and I wanted to see him play this role. But in 2025, I had a friend who had watched the movie, so I was like, cool, I'll watch it and we can like discuss it together. And it just was not good. So the show is about, or the movie is about, these two publishing companies that merge, and then you have these two secretaries that are vying for the same promotion, and so they're like rivals. So this kind of like hate to love relationship, and like during this process of like vying for this promotion, they like start falling for each other. However, before all of that happens, there is a lot of what some people would consider like banter, office like place banter between the two of them. Honestly, these two people should have been sent straight to HR. Like, don't pass go, don't collect 200, or do pass go and don't collect 200, something like that. But no, straight to HR. The things that they were saying to each other, like, I don't understand how, like, it was just so inappropriate in a workplace setting that if like any normal person were their coworkers, it would be harassment. Like, no, absolutely not. And so instead of like being like, wow, look at this like flirty, romantic bantering, I was just like, no, this is bad, this is wrong, this is not funny. Yeah, because this is like sold as like a romantic comedy. I did not see the comedy at all. Number 8 is My Life with the Walter Boys Season 2. So I enjoyed the first season. I thought it was fun enough. And I know people online say that is it My Life? Yeah, My Life with the Walter Boys is like the teen version of The Summer I Turned Pretty. And I could totally see that. You know, they're both like follow a love triangle between brothers. They deal with like the death of a parent, and yeah, there's like similarities there, but the main thing being like the love triangle between two brothers. I personally don't like love triangles involving siblings, but I thought like the first season was like you like know what you're getting yourself into when you're watching like teen dramas, right? So I just needed to be like, haha, fun. But I think the second season just like did not work for me. I felt that there were a lot of secondary characters, and some of them had very, like, I felt like most of them, like their storylines was just so dull, and there were a few that were interesting, but there were just so many of them. And I think the love triangle that they were trying to push, you can see it like come back at the end of the season, and you're just like, why this like pushing of this love triangle was just so unnecessary. We didn't need it. And I understand like that is like its main plot, but like the story could have grown without it, and I think it would have done a better job instead of being like dun dun dun, the love triangle between the two brothers resurfaces yet again. Number 7 is Detention, which is a Taiwanese psychological horror called Fan Xiao, and it's very unique. It was based off a video game, and it explores the experience students went through during Taiwan's White Terror period. One thing that one thing I didn't really like is that I felt like this is obviously an important historical piece of history or it's an important piece of history for Taiwan, right? And I think if this movie was shown to an international audience who had no idea about that time period, they would just be lost. And I think if you are going to use such a political backdrop as your background, as your setting, then I feel like you need to give a little more historical context so that the audience can follow. And I understand maybe this is not for an international audience, right? I mean, I was learning about this time in history because of school, so I knew about it beforehand. But then I was also thinking okay, if I didn't learn about this in school, would I have been able to follow this? And I maybe would have, but I would have wanted to learn more about why specifically this historical period was chosen and why we are talking about it and the impacts and the importance, right? So there was that. Also in the movie, there is a student-teacher relationship, and I've talked about this multiple times in different reviews and stuff. But as someone who used to work in education, I hate it when a student-teacher relationship is introduced and there is no backlash, right? There's no talks about why it's bad or exploring the power imbalance. I don't like it when a student-teacher relationship is introduced, especially if the student is still a minor, and it's shown as it's fine, it's okay, it's acceptable, because I don't really think that should ever be the case. One thing I will say is that this movie does have one of my favorite actors. I've seen him in quite a few stuff now, and I just want to wish him a continuous, prosperous career. His name is Zhen Jinghua, and if you want a movie recommendation that follows Taiwan's White Terror period, I really recommend A City of Sadness, 北京城市, I think. That's really good. Number 6 is a twofer, and it's Your Fault and Our Fault, which is a Spanish teen movie. It's part of a movie trilogy. This is 2 and 3, and I had watched 1 when it originally came out, and I thought it was just so much fun. I even bought the book that I haven't read, but I thought it was just that much fun, you know. So we have new step siblings, and they both can race cars. Noah has childhood trauma, and the guy Nick is this wealthy bad boy, and they shouldn't be falling for each other, but they are. There's action, there's angst, there's very sexy flirtation. The first movie was just very enjoyable for me, and I just needed the second and third film to stay equally fun, and it just didn't do that, and I was so disappointed. I think so. Noah makes a mistake, and Nick cannot forgive her. And instead of just leaving her alone if he is not going to forgive her, he ends up following her and stalking her and annoying her. And at a certain point, I'm just either forgive her or leave her alone. Also, one of my biggest pet peeves in romance is introducing a pregnancy or a baby into a relationship that is lacking in communication, and then having that miracle child solve everything, all their problems. And I really hate that message of like a baby fixes everything that is wrong in a relationship, because it doesn't. It really doesn't. And for you to sell me this, I'm just like, no, it makes me mad. The villains make a return in the third movie, but like their return and their motives were just so weak. And honestly, I felt like my request was really simple. I just wanted to be entertained. I just wanted to watch a fun Spanish teen romance. And instead, I just got mad. Number 5 is the first season of History. History is a Taiwan BL show franchise. Each season and like each episodes in a season, and they're really short seasons, follow like a different pairing, actors and whatnot. And I would say like mid 2025, I got sucked back into like the world of like Asian BL, and I saw like huge discourse about like certain seasons or certain episodes of History, and I was like, wait, I want to be a part of this discussion. So I started watching the first season, and the first season is utter garbage. I think the plots have not aged well, like at all. And I think that's saying a lot, since it's not like really, or at least to me, it's not really that old. And so for it to not age well, it's just like poor writing, poor pairing. And I'm glad that like how bad the first season was did not deter me from watching the second season, because the second season is so much better. I love the second season, but this first season was just so bad. And it's like 3 episodes. What are the 3 episodes? The first one is My Hero. The second one is Stay Away From Me, 离我远一点. And the third one is Obsessed, 着魔. I think that the first is the worst of the 3, but I don't want to like be here and like make this so long where I'm recounting why each episode was bad. If I remember, I'll link my written review, which I think goes into detail as like why I thought like this entire first season is just garbage. Number 4 is Dust in the Wind. Unfortunately, we have another Taiwanese film that made it on my most disappointing / worst list. I was introduced to director Ho Xiaoxian. Is that correct? Yeah, Ho Xiaoxian, by my Taiwanese culture professor. And although I loved A City of Sadness, I wasn't a big fan of Dust in the Wind. Don't get me wrong, Dust in the Wind does a really great job in showcasing the Taiwanese working class life in the 1970s by like following these 2 young lovers who moved to the city for better opportunities. But moving to the city for better opportunities isn't all that it's cracked up to be. And there's the responsibility of like surviving in the city, but also like sending money back home to like the countryside to support your family, and that stress, but then also the friends that you make that are like your little country bumpkin crew in the city. But yeah, I just felt like this movie's not short. I think like it is about like 2 hours, and one thing that really upset me was I got to the end and I just was not satisfied with the ending. I was like, really? This is it? I really felt like I gave 2 hours of my time and attention, and I got an ending that just left me not content. And I was just like, wow, well, that was boring. So my main issue was that I just felt like the payoff wasn't there. Number 3 is Loving Vincent. For one of my friend's birthdays, we like took a quick trip to Virginia, and we like watched Loving Vincent at this like beautiful art house theater. And I don't know, possibly I just don't have an eye for art. So this film is told in paintings in that Van Gogh art style. And I think it takes like, you know, a little bit of an adjustment period for your eyes to get used to it. But I still did not see the vision. I can see why people would think this is a stunning film. And I think that's completely valid. According to one of my friends who was in attendance with me and some of the movie goers as we were leaving, the story it was telling about Vincent van Gogh wasn't completely like accurate, and I just feel like that's a little damning when there's so much information about the painter that there was no need to fictionalize certain aspects. But also I didn't go and like fact check any of this, so I could be wrong about other people saying that it's wrong. But yeah, I just don't think the visual experience worked for me, and I also just don't think the storytelling worked for me either. However, the soundtrack was very beautiful, and like after I like heard the music, I added some songs like immediately onto my playlist because I was like, that's beautiful. Number 2 is Final Draft. I loved Physical Asia. Now, did South Korea have home court advantage? Definitely. Are we discussing Physical Asia today? No. What I want instead is to trash on Final Draft. Now, Final Draft is the Japanese bad take of Physical 100. While I was waiting for new episodes of Physical Asia, I went and watched Final Draft. And if you want to watch it to support, I forgot what his name, that like guy, what is his name? Yoshio Itoi. Then yeah, you can definitely watch it to support that Silver Fox athlete. But in terms, so first of all, this is like a sporting reality competition. And instead of everyone competing on like, I guess like equal grounds, you had some contestants, depending on how they were scoring, living out in camps versus others who get to glamp. And I just felt like that wasn't fair and a little bit unsportsmanlike. In addition, there is one episode where from like the scoring system, team captains are selected, and if you weren't picked by a team captain, you were eliminated. And I thought that was just absolutely disheartening, like gut wrenching, to like not even be able to prove yourself and lose like the competition on your own terms, but you're losing because someone else didn't pick you for whatever reasons according to that person. And that was when I realized like this is a whack job. Like this is not like a sporting reality competition promoting like the right values of like sporting competition. So those were like my two big points that made me dislike Final Draft. And I think another is like when you look at the challenges, like the creativity, and also like just especially the final ones where it's like, or the one before the final one where like the person initiating the challenge has to do it over and over and over again. I don't know. I think if you've seen Physical 100, you'll feel that the challenges for Final Draft are just very uninspiring. They're just not as entertaining or creative or like fun to watch. And there are some like issues where contestants lose because they didn't fully grasp like the whole like game of the challenge. And I thought that was also not like, I think just a lot of like the unfairness of it all made it like difficult to watch. But I do see how like watching these shows, you like pick a favorite and you like watch to the end for your favorites. I can see why people will watch the end, because I obviously did, even though I had so many issues with it. Before I announce my number one worst thing that I watched in 2025, I forgot that I had one DNF in 2025, so I'll quickly talk about it here, even though I usually place like DNF like at the start of the video, but I remembered it. And it's a Chinese drama called The Story of Pearl Girl. What is the Chinese title? 珠帘玉母. Yeah, so I really like Zhao Lushi, the actress, and I was excited to watch this new drama of hers. And I would say, like a little more than halfway, but I think by that point, like the story just really lost me. The characters were just doing the most random things. Oh, and the main character was like very Mary Sue, but like, yeah, a lot of the characters were just like continuously telling these lies that I was just like, no, stop, we don't need to. And like they were like motivated to do like these things that I was just like, no, we don't have to take all these side quests and routes to like bring it back to the original plot line. Yeah, so I think the story just really like lost me, and I just could no longer continue with it, even though I was like super hyped because this is Zhao Lusi and, oh my god, why can't, Liu Yuning's 二搭. So this is like the second time that they are pairing up again as a couple, and the last time I think it was for the Long Song, and they were pretty good in that. So yeah, so I had so much expectations and it just didn't live up to it. It was easy this year deciding what would be in the first place because I simply went by ranking, or my rating, and I must have really disliked this when I watched it early in the year, because a little bit of my hate for it, I would say, have since dissipated. But for me to give something less than 2 stars, and this is like the only thing to get less than 2 stars. And if you know me, like I watch a bunch of stuff in 1 year. But yeah, that is the second season of The Recruit. Wow. I had to like look over my initial review for it to remind myself why I hated it so much. I mean, I remember not liking it, right? I didn't like first season, but I love Noah Centineo, especially because I will always remember him as Peter Kavinsky from To All the Boys. So I just wanted to keep supporting him in his new projects. I watched the second season, and one of my main complaints is that the second season doesn't answer the questions left over from the first season, and then it creates more questions in the second season. My camera just shut off on me. I wasn't paying attention to it, so I hope I didn't lose any of my ramblings. If I did, I don't know. I don't know what I would do. I think it should be okay. I was cut off before finishing my thoughts on the second season of The Recruit. Overall, I was hoping that the second season would be better. We're still following the CIA lawyer who ends up becoming a field agent, and the story is set in South Korea this time, which was pretty cool, but it doesn't save it from being hard garbage. My main complaints are the lack of answers from season 1 and the new ones created from season 2. In addition, the ending was just too easy and not fun, and sometimes I think a good action movie or show just needs to have good action, right? If there's no need for a romantic interest, we don't need a romance plotline. Don't shove that down our throats, especially if it's going to be a bad one. The new romantic interest that was introduced was annoying, and like I said, like the romance was just, it felt so forced and not good. So let's just focus on giving us good action and not checking off the romance box just because. So yeah, I can see so I think the show is canceled. And unfortunately, I can see why. Anyways, let's just outro this. Like, comment, subscribe. See you in my next video whenever that is. Bye!